Hey everybody, welcome back to Visual Novel Book Club. I'm your pal Slow Beef. With me, of course, my good friend Turbo C.
Hello.
Welcome back. My good friend Rosella 500.
Hello.
My good friend Jim.
Hey everybody. My
good friend Oren Ronan.
Good evening.
Pulahoko is the person who's not here.
Mm-hmm.
He is abstaining from chapter 3 due to deeply held video game convictions, I'm afraid. No, he just couldn't make it and told us to go on without him. So, without further ado, chapter 3, The Adventure of the Runaway Room. I'll throw it out there. Not a great chapter name.
Nope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this based off of a Sherlock Holmes thing? Not that I can remember. It certainly didn't seem like it. Okay.
Can I throw out a hotter take? Not a great chapter, in my opinion.
Ooh.
I enjoyed it. I think it was interesting.
Yeah.
It wasn't all right. I didn't like it as much as the other two.
I like it. It does things that you don't usually see in Ace Attorney games, especially in how it ends.
I will agree with that. It did feel like it ran on a bit too long with what it was trying to do.
Yeah.
I find it really interesting for its purpose as a sequel to Apollo Justice somehow. I was not expecting that when we go 200 years in the future, but I wanted it, so I have to like this case because I got it.
How is it a sequel to Apollo Justice?
Yeah, I don't know if I like. I guess this is a spoiler for the end of Apollo Justice, sort of. So skip ahead like 30 seconds or something.
Sure.
But basically, Apollo Justice ends with the establishment of a jury system.
Oh, right, okay.
And then we completely abandon that. For subsequent, mainline entries in the series.
So, to be fair, Apollo Justice came out when the Japanese justice system introduced not a jury, like they call it in the translation, but a system of lay judges, which is a different system that seems similar to juries, but not really. And that's what was really in Apollo Justice. It wasn't a jury, like here. There are actually two other DS games that came out on the day that the system was introduced, and that dealt with this. Like two other adventure games taking place in a courtroom. That are pretty good, actually.
Wait, do you mean like the investigations games, or?
No, I mean separately from Phoenix Wright, like two unrelated games, like adventure games that take place in the courtroom where you actually play the jury, not the jury, the lay judge system. You can read about it in Wikipedia. It's an interesting system. It's not at all like juries, but it's kind of similar, but not really. So when they translated the game, they called it jury in English. But
well, the jury here isn't even really a jury, at least not in the
traditional. Yeah.
I have no idea what juries were like in 19th century Great Britain, so I don't know how accurate this is.
So it's completely inaccurate.
I mean, they cast fire.
Yeah, that part they got right. Yeah, of course. No. I looked this up. Jury systems in Great Britain at the time were 12 people. You didn't always have a jury. You could opt for a crown trial, which is just under magistrates, and you had to be a property owner in England to serve on a jury until the 70s, and there were no women in the late 1800s into the early 1900s that were serving on juries at all.
So this is more progressive than it really was.
Much.
Well, maybe that's fine.
They're actually bringing a knife into the jury, so
and a typewriter, and yeah. But
I think the knife would be the more forbidden aspect, though.
That's true too. So when we're here in chapter 3, the Adventure of the Runaway Room, we start off with like a novelization telling of a story. It seems like, I mean, it's
sort of like how the last episode started with like the climax of the adventure of the Speckled Band.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering if this was a Sherlock Holmes story, because it's about a murder in a carriage where there were witnesses, but the only two people in the carriage were the murderer and the victim, which, spoiler alert.
What's interesting about it is that in that like little sequence, it seems like they're talking about this case because Holmes talks about how this was the start of his relationship with the student from the East.
Mm-hmm.
But Holmes isn't in this chapter at all.
Yeah, I was
Right.
expecting for him to jump in at any point.
Yeah, me too.
And also, this is narrated, by Watson or Wilson, if you please.
Wilson, yes.
And as you might recall, that man is dead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is also interesting, yes.
The intro was very confusing to me.
Yep.
I didn't pay it too much mind,
Yeah, it's only like 3 lines.
It will eventually make sense, I have to say that.
Yeah, I have some theories.
Okay.
To be fair, I was like getting late to the deadline, so I kind of read that fast. But anyway, so what do you call it? We get an animated sequence next, like full on like animation. All right, just animated, whatever. And in it, Naruhodo and Susato arrive in London, and they're just amazed by everything. It's wonderful here in London. There's like, everything looks like 19th century London, and there's carriages and like, kids running about, scrappy kids with those like flat caps. You know how this is, Old hat for us, but for a couple of Japanese law students or an assistant and a law student or whatever Susato is, I forget. But yeah, it's wacky. It's awesome. It's a whole new world. Don't you dare close your eyes. And they have to hurry though, because they need to get to what was it? The Supreme Court of Whitehall. And they get their taxi. They're in a little taxi cab, and they go there, and they're in a steampunk gear law room. It's kind of great.
It looks like they're in Big Ben.
Yeah. Like there's a giant clock on the back.
Yeah. Which I guess Big Ben's the bell. Before before somebody's listening, yeah, I know it's the bell and it's the whatever, it's the Parliament Tower, but you know what I mean.
They're in Dracula's castle.
So ironically, it's the level before you meet Dracula in Castlevania parlance, which I think, will come into play.
Oh my god, the Reaper's even in this chapter.
Yeah, right? I was thinking that the whole time. Chief Justice Mael Strongheart, that's Mael, and I'm assuming it's pronounced male, like a maelstrom,
Do you want to know what this man is called in Japanese?
Oh, yeah.
I want nothing more.
It's called Heart Vortex.
Heart Votic?
Vortex.
A vortex.
That's so weird.
Nice. So yeah, same vibe. Good vibe.
So they change Vortex to Maelstrom, and the Heart is still the Heart. But,
Yeah.
I see.
Oh.
Got it.
but I think Heart Vortex is a much more it's a much cooler name.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that he is the Lord Chief Justice, which is just one heck of a title.
If I had a comedy sketch with a gay porno in it, I would name an actor there male Strongheart. Personally, that's just me.
Yeah.
Just wanted to throw that out there.
can see
Probably
that.
not good enough to be a real porn actor's name, but in my cartoon Saturday Night Live world or whatever I'm building here, that's where it goes. Anyhow,
I want to give this, I guess, the art team some credit here for every time they introduce a new character. I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be the final villain.
mm-hmm.
They did that with their professor in the first chapter, and they're doing it with this guy, and there's 3 other people that come in this chapter. I'm like, okay, who's the final boss here?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Totally with you. So, again, with the, oh my gosh, technology, they've, Strongheart's been told via telegraph that Kazuma died. And, of course, Naruhodo's like, what the, amazing, before we got here even. And the guy's like, you Japanese are really punctual, delivering the message in person anyway. But, basically Naruhodo's like, well, listen, I got a crazy idea. What if we continue the study tour? And then in true Phoenix Wright fashion, no one gets to the point. So it's continue the study tour, but we can't do that. And then blah, blah, blah. You a lawyer? And he's like, yeah, he goes, okay, well, I don't think your ship was enough to go to a law school education here, but I have an idea. Why don't you defend someone in court right now? And if you win the case, you can be a lawyer.
And if not, there's a man's blood on your hands.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a capital case. It's murder.
Yeah, it's a murder trial, and yeah, it's capital.
To Naruhodo's credit, he's like, I can't do that. I'm sorry. That's like too important. I can't put someone's life on the line just to prove I'm a lawyer. But it turns out no one's going to defend this guy for some reason. So it's basically he's going to have to defend himself if you don't do it, to which case Naruhodo's like, well, I can't let that happen. So, okay.
There's also this really intimidating animation that Strongheart has, where like he like extends his arms and like there's a whole screen shake, birds fly off in the background, and the camera like turns down so that you're looking up at him intimidatingly, like as he's explaining this to you. Like, don't worry about it. It's just a fun little game where you defend someone who will literally die if you're not good at your job. And it's just
right.
Poof. It's just a fun welcome to this friendly country.
And the whole time I'm thinking, like, oh, so he's setting you up. Like, this has to be something. There's other stuff going on here that he wants this Japanese law student who's literally studied for 50 days and has no degree in law to go defend this guy for murder.
Right. So my initial thought thinking it's an unwinnable case, and this is like kind of his way of like getting, like, you know what I mean? Like politely declining, like, no, you can't just be a lawyer, Right. Although it is still fucked up, but that was my thought as to it.
I was reading Strongheart as a very actually truthful about the matter here. Like, he seemed very like villainous, as I was saying in the beginning, but more as I talked to him, he's more like that stern teacher that actually does care about things, at least how I was reading it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Because he was just like, oh yeah, you actually do have noble intentions. You just have the guts to see them through or things like that.
He did give us props for saying, like, you can't just like toy with a man's life like that. And he's like, you know what? That is a really good point. You seem like a good person with some strong values.
Right.
But seriously, like, he literally doesn't have a lawyer. You should do it.
I like, it was kind of a Simpsons thing where he's like, wow, those true values are like indicative of a good lawyer. So you are really qualified to read the guy after all, But and I say you fly boys, don't stop joking around. Anyway, so it's so we have like 15 minutes to get there too.
That's just have to get us there in 5.
Yep, we get there in 5. To the Old Bailey is the name of the courtroom, the courthouse. And we get there because Susato told the cab driver, like, get us there in a hurry, and if you do, there's a guinea in it for you, which is apparently something she read in Ranced magazine that Herlock Sholmes did once. And I don't know what a guinea like maps to. I guess it's like a pound.
It's very slightly more than a pound.
Okay.
Like I had to look this up because I just couldn't handle not knowing this. But the guinea is worth, so a pound is 20 shillings, a pound is 20 shillings, and a guinea is 21 shillings. So it is ever so slightly more than a pound.
Yeah.
Yeah, the British monetary system was not decimal until like literally the 70s. So if you ever want to really confuse yourself, go look up everything because it's insane. They have 100 coins and they're all over the place. Well, not 100, but they have many coins and they're all over the place, and they all do like weird numbers.
Is it like the imperial system of measurement, but with currency, basically?
Worse.
Wow.
Yeah, there's 12 pence to a shilling and 20 shillings to a pound and 21 shillings to a guinea, and then a bunch of other intermediate things like tuppence and crowns and halfpennies and farthings. And
I gotta derail. So I never looked this up, but now you confirmed. So Mary Poppins, they're giving the birds money to eat.
I think it costs 2 pence to buy the bird seed.
Okay, because the lady is singing "Feed the birds tuppence," right?
Tuppence a bag.
Tuppence a bag.
Yeah. Oh, tuppence a bag. Okay, got it. So, okay, cool, gotcha. It's all clear to me now. Excellent.
Yeah, I was also trying to look up how much that money was, and yeah, I came across the 21 shillings essentially. But I was also just like, so how much is that worth, like, to me in my reference? And I couldn't really find anything. Thankfully, the game does actually later give us a reasonable reference to what 1,000 guinea could mean to Naruhodo and Susato.
Now, what's the crypto they used in the 19th century?
It also implies that like 20 guineas is a lot of money.
Right.
So let's see here. So we get there and we've got like 10 minutes till trial and we meet our defendant, Magnus McGilded, who is kind of like Scrooge McDuck in human form, which is what I have in my notes. He's accused of murder. Okay. And he's rich.
He doesn't seem to be too worried about it, though.
Nah.
Yeah.
He's like flipping us coins.
Difference is Scrooge is Scottish. McGilded is definitely Irish.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, like you say, he's not too worried about it. But basically at one point he's like, I can't, no one will defend me. And we're like, why? He's like, I bet you're even wondering with all my money why I couldn't even pay for the best lawyer. And the answer is the prosecutor is the reaper of the Old Bailey, Lord Baron von Zeeks. Oren, will you do us the honors of telling us what his name is in Japanese?
It's exactly the same.
Oh, well, never mind that.
This is one they didn't change.
Is there anything else pertinent that I'm forgetting before we go into the courtroom?
Also, it's not Baron von Zix, it's Baroque von Zix with a K.
Yeah.
McGilded did try and bribe us to be his defense attorney until we actually were just like, no, we're actually here to defend you.
Yeah, he just thought we were just like poor and asking for handouts. He's like, look, okay, I'll give you 1,000 guineas if you just stand next to me and say you're my defense attorney.
Yeah, which is relevant because, you think he just like, I need someone, but it becomes clear later he actually had a plan to defend himself regardless of who his lawyer was.
I guess maybe it looks better to have a lawyer.
Yeah.
Which is literally what he offers to pay him for. Just stand next to me. I'll give you 1,000 guineas to stand next to me.
Mm-hmm. He also at some point calls you a daft Egypt, which I had to say out loud before I realized it was daft idiot with an Irish accent. But I stared at that for like a minute.
It's funny too because they only use the Irish accent on certain words. Like they change THs to Ts and a couple others, but like it's not consistent really. No, well, I guess it's consistent, but it's just not very doesn't happen a lot in the text.
Yeah, you sometimes have to look it up to figure it out to be sure.
Yeah, this game also has like a surprising amount of English words I did not know. I had to look up.
I was pretty good on this one. I think there's only 2 I had to look up, and one of them was one of McGilded's, which was Amadon, which is Gaelic for like a fool or an idiot. And then palaver later.
Palaver.
Yeah.
Palaver? Is that it? Okay, palaver. So, which is an unnecessary or complicated procedure.
Yeah. There's also some Cockney rhyming slang, but I think they mostly explain it.
There's one, right? Butcher, I think. Yeah. Which I love Cockney rhyming slang personally.
There's Adam and Eve too, I think.
Yeah. This is the one place where like the English version of this game has like a significant advantage over the Japanese. Because this is taking place in England, they actually can use accents and slang, and obviously you can't in Japanese.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is one place where it's really advantageous to play the English version, not the original.
One other thing I will say about Mr. McGilded is he was the other person I was referencing when saying that they were designing villains in this chapter. He, as soon as we saw him, I was like, okay, this one is probably going to be found guilty in some way or another. And then you find out, I have to defend him. So maybe he is innocent. Who knows? But yeah, he sort of is drawn in a negative style.
Yeah, they don't end Ace Attorney cases with a guilty verdict, do they? So obviously it's innocent.
Well,
I mean, that would imply that we're bad at our job.
So, we get in, right? And there is the courtroom and the British courtroom with the judge who looks kind of like the judge. You know the deal, right?
It looks like Santa Claus.
Looks like Santa Claus. He always looks like Santa Claus. no matter what time period or place you're in. And then we get jurors. So we have the jurist. Isn't it called the jurist system in Apollo Justice? I thought they like made a little funny name for it, but either here it's like the jury kind of. So the jury. So the 6 jurors who I have the foreman.
They are never given names, only numbers.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Juror 1 through 6.
As is appropriate for a jury.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The maid. I'm gonna get my notes here. Knife guy.
Yep.
Who is possibly a barber, but maybe not.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good joke too. That comes in later.
This lady who has like a typewriter with her, and and I think they probably changed it, but this is an Irish stereotype. Don't tell me it's not. The guy who has like a horseshoe hanging from his like neck, and he's like when you see him, he like has that little like like a flask, like the metal flask kind of deal. So
and
he
he's
takes a
wearing
swig
green.
there. And he's wearing green and like a green hat and all that. Yeah. He doesn't have the accent. I feel like that's what he was drawn as and maybe was like in the Japanese version. And then when they localize it, they're like, let's maybe not do that,
We've already got one Irish accent. We don't need to go 2 over the top.
We're already calling the defendant a leprechaun. Let's
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do actually do that.
Also, he's got the you mentioned he has the horseshoe on for basically like a tie, but then his facial hair matches the horseshoe exactly. He's just got like a goatee in the shape of a horseshoe.
Right. And then an old lady who's like knitting, So this is kind of like a typical Phoenix Wright tutorial case, in that like we barely know anything about the case as we're doing it, and we're learning as we go. So we learn the victim is a mason named Thrice Fired because his bricks are really good. I thought it because he was really bad at his job, but actually it's because he's quite good at his job and his bricks really hold up. Like he fires them 3 times.
Yeah, he hasn't fired as a mason.
Right, yeah. He's doing the firing, but he was stabbed in the stomach, and we have a color photograph of that. And only McGilded was in the carriage with him, but he claims that he was asleep the whole time. And and I'm sorry, I didn't introduce our prosecutor.
Yeah.
Baron von Zeeks, or Barak von Zeeks? Barak.
Or Baroque. I don't know how they want to say it.
He's kind of great. He's Dracula.
He's definitely just Dracula.
Yeah, he's got like kind of like these light scars on his face, like an X kind of, and a fucking cape, And he does like his like Phoenix Wright Edgeworthy flourishes where he like holds out his hand with like his fingers kind of like straight out sort of,
He's almost doing like a JoJo pose.
Yeah.
Like if he had his other hand on his face, it would be very JoJo's.
Mm-hmm.
and like he's clearly animated to be that way because later on he'll have wine. And he'll hold it like in the miserable pile of secrets way, and then he smashes it. Like they're doing it on purpose.
That is when I lost it, by the way. That's when my notes just trail off. I'm just like, God, he just obliterated that wine glass.
I was annoyed because the trailer for the game that's on Twitter, like the advertisement thing, they like very briefly show someone who like, you assume the prosecutor like smashing the wine glass, and that's like kind of all I knew about him. So later when you see him with the wine glass, I'm like, oh, he's gonna do that. So damn you, advertisements.
He's also another British character who is pretty racist.
Yeah. He doesn't like. Yeah, he does the whole like you Japanese don't know how to lawyer.
He keeps calling us Nipponese.
Oh, Nipponese, right? That's right.
Why?
Yeah, that one threw me for a loop.
That, what that sounds like? That's like, like the people who like feel like they know about like Japanese culture and language because they like, because they like play a bunch of video games.
Yeah, they caught up on like a handful of things.
Yeah, so he's like, I'm calling them Nipponese so they'll know that I know what Japan is and know all about it.
I bet at that time period, like Nipponese was a way to refer to Japan still.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the pronunciation of Japan like really took hold later because it's more accurate.
Mm-hmm. Does he refer to you oddly in the Japanese version?
No, it's just it's all in Japanese, so it's just Nihonjin or Nipponjin.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I imagine it's actually probably accurate for the time period.
Yeah, and I forget. I remember reading in a book once where a character set like a fictional novel set in World War II. They used the term too, so I think it probably and it was somebody like who does a bunch of research. I forget which one I was reading, but I've seen the term before, so I think it's just a dated term.
I know it from Fatal Fury, so you know.
Japan in Japanese at that time at least was definitely Nippon. Today it's usually Nihon and not Nippon, but Japan is the somehow transformed into Japan in the West. I don't even know what process.
So why does that character say Nipponichi then? You know the one. Don't make me say it. The one from Fatal Fury.
So today the pronunciation Nippon is associated with nationalism.
I see.
So if you're referring to Japanese number one, so you would say Nipponichi and not Nihonichi.
I was referring to my Shiranui and dancing around it to be funny, but nobody fighting game. Okay, whatever. It's fine. It's fine.
There's a gaming company called Nipponichi, you know.
Gotcha. No, I was referring to SNK, but whatever. Look, it doesn't matter. We have 3 witnesses. Okay. There's the driver, Beppo. And I think that's his only name, right? They just Beppo.
I did kind of lose it at that name, considering everyone else's names at this point are very long and drawn out. And just like Beppo.
It's true.
What a poor man, though.
He's the driver of the omnibus, right?
Yes.
So, and he has a little whip with him, like a riding crop, rather,
And he's also freezing to death in front of us.
Yeah, it's so cold, and he mentions how cold it is on his route the whole time.
Yeah.
So then we have 2 other passengers. Bruce Fairplay, who's a banker.
This is the one name I don't know why they changed, because it's called Oscar Fairplay in Japanese, and Oscar is a perfectly fine name. Why did they change to Bruce?
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's a perfectly reasonable thing to call someone.
Sure.
I'm trying to see if there's something like some kind of wordplay, but it's not. Bruce Fair doesn't really know.
So Bruce Fairplay is pretty interesting in that he's always looking to the right, at least for a good portion of the trial, until we, enrage him like we do all of the other witnesses. And then our third witness is a person who is constantly adjusting their hat because it's all shoddily made. And their name is Lay D. First.
And he makes hats very badly.
Yeah. I was very confused why they were going with the lady pun there.
Yeah, I was waiting for something inappropriate. I'm just like, oh, here comes that joke. And then they never made it, or they never translated it.
Now that you've said it out loud, I think maybe we're supposed to think of him as a gentleman, as in ladies first.
That's what I thought.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought they were gonna do sort of like what they did with the other chapter with ballet dancer who was hiding for a while.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gotcha. No, yeah. No. He's just a beta. No, I'm joking. So what do you call it? Basically, what's happened is I was a little confused by this, by the way. But it's because McGilden and Mason were the only ones in the carriage, right? Or the omnibus. But he has 3 witnesses, which I'm like, well, but how? Were they driving? And Naruhodo's confused by this too. And this is where Zeke starts with as oh, you Nipponese must not know what an omnibus is. Don't worry, here's one. And he brings the entire omnibus and submits it as evidence into the middle of the courtroom. And an omnibus, for those of you who may not know and don't have the visual aid of the game, why aren't you reading along with us, first of all? But second of all, it's like a bigger carriage, kind of. And there's 2 seats facing each other inside, and then 2 in one direction on the roof, like a double-decker carriage, kind of,
Yeah.
And apparently that's the best way to see London.
Yeah, and also I looked it up, and that is what they look like. I don't know about all the details, because there's a key detail in this that I haven't seen from any of the pictures, but from looking them up, they did accurately model this on what they looked like at the time. They did have the 2 benches inside and the 2 on the roof.
Is the key detail you're talking about the label that says Phoenix Wright carriages?
Well, I mean, that one too.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, if you rotate it on the back, it says something like that.
Huh.
Because yeah, when it gets entered into the court record, you can examine it from the court record. You can rotate it, and you can actually like go into it. You can examine the whole thing. And no, I just wanted to talk about what you can find inside the omnibus, because that was the first thing I did the second it got entered in the court record.
Yeah, there is a lot that you should look at first.
Yeah, me too. I wanted to say that the Phoenix Wright reference makes more sense in Japanese, where it's just a cute reference. In English, it sounds like they named Phoenix Wright eventually after the omnibus.
So what is it in Japanese? Does it say like Phoenix Wright?
Yeah, it says Phoenix Wright in English. It's just like a cute reference because Phoenix Wright is not a character in the Japanese version of Gekten Saiban.
Right.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Oh, they kind of box themselves in by using the original Japanese names in this one, I guess. So there's like kind of nothing they can do there.
Yeah, they certainly can't call it, Naruhodo.
They still, I think the official stance is still that like Phoenix Wright is a descendant of this Naruhodo.
Right.
I think that makes sense. You can have descendants from other countries.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or ancestors.
Yeah.
Which again makes it look like they named him after the omnibus.
Just Ryunosuke just saw this name on the omnibus and was like, "That's dope. I should write that down." And then someone centuries later found that note.
He has to do some weird Kaiser Soze thing later. It's like the only name he can think of.
Were you named after your grandfather? No, I was named after his favorite bus.
So this is interesting because we don't really know exactly how the jury system works, and Susato is actually kind of like looking this up for us as we go, which is nice of her,
I'm surprised that she doesn't know, like, when she got there.
You'd think that'd be early in the lessons that she was giving him?
Yeah, right? Because, I hope you weren't, studying just Japanese law. I mean, you're going to need to... Well, maybe he was. It was a study tour, technically, right? I guess Kazuma didn't expect to, have to defend anybody either, maybe. I don't know. But, for whatever the reason, we're in the middle of testimony. And this is you first have to press everybody, and they're all just kind of saying, it's the three of them testifying at once, and it's a typical sort of I saw the moment of the stabbing and it was definitely on the floor, and they're contradicting each other, and you're already thinking that doesn't match the photograph, that's not quite right, But as you're pressing them, all of a sudden juror number 3, the knife guy, and he's this lanky guy who's kind of a seedy character, and he's got a knife with him, in the little jury box, which is in front of the judge, is I made up my mind. You know what I mean? I should mention too, people in the courtroom, in the gallery, were mentioning when McGilded is up how much they like him because he donates a lot of money to the city, and there's a park named after him and things like that,
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden juror 3 announces you know what? You can't trust rich people. I can't stand it. This guy's obviously guilty. And the chair behind him flips to black, and then this little flame appears next to him. It's a device, like a little lamp kind of thing, And behind him there are these scales, right? And this is hard to describe, but all of a sudden a ball of flame comes out of his flame and goes on the left side of the scale and weighs it down a little bit. The scale already has some fire on it, so it's kind of unclear exactly what happened here.
It's just magic. There's no justification.
Yeah.
Number 1, flames don't have weight. Number 2, you can't throw them around like that. I mean, it's just a magic flame that moves scales.
I thought they were going to say something they were going to explain there's at least say that there's a mechanism involved, even if they don't tell me what it is. But
nope, we're throwing fire.
Nobody questions it or anything, or I don't know. So
it's just how this works.
Is what it is. Yeah. So, and then juror 1, the foreman, agrees and also submits his flame. So 2 of the jurors have already decided a guilty verdict. And then the Zeke's suddenly is like, when you press on the knife, it's like, oh yeah, the knife, I forgot. This is, well, I'll submit that into evidence. He doesn't actually say like, I forgot. He's just like, while we're on the subject, here you go. And it's a very pristine looking knife with an M on it. And he's like, it could have stood for Magnus or McGilded, take your pick. And if you look at it in the court evidence, Naruhodo, of course, points out, actually, it could be a W upside down. Susato's like, yeah, but it's probably an M.
The other thing is that back in the intro to case number 2, like, we did have Herlock Sholmes, like, spraying that stuff that made fingerprints show up. And I'm like, man, if only Herlock Sholmes were here, he would know what fingerprints are. And then, like, I feel like this case would take a very different turn. But no one knows what fingerprints are. So we have a knife and there's just nothing we can do about it.
To be fair, like 90% of these people of this society are wearing gloves, like in England here, you know? So
it is midwinter.
It's true.
And here he was, in fact, wearing gloves, as we'll learn very soon.
So as you're pressing them, juror 2 announces the maid that, you know, like things have to be tidied up. Haha, she's a maid. So, you know, she's like, you know, I think he's guilty. And then juror 4 announces, and then juror 5. So now only juror 6, the little old lady, remains. And she's like, well, I like Mr. McGilded. I always sit down in McGilded Park that, you know, was made possible with his money. And then that's when Zeke says, like, nice. Well, I hate to tell you this, but Mr. McGilded is a Shylock, which I was like, But, you know, he is a loan shark, and you borrow money from him, and he charges you exorbitant interest rates, and that's how he got his money. So, Susato interrupts, and she's like, oh yeah, well, that's fine to say that, but do you have any proof that he's a loan shark? And so, wine. And here's where Zeke pours himself a glass of wine. He's like, please forgive me, Your Honor.
The hallowed goblet, hallowed chalice.
The hallowed, right. Yeah, and the judge is like, the hallowed chalice of the Reaper. This is Owens. I got to see this up close, you know?
Oh, yeah, because did we mention that he hasn't practiced law for 5 years? He just decided to stop for some reason.
Oh, that's right. You're right. I'm sorry. I didn't mention that. He's come out of 5-year retirement for this case, basically. With that, the little old lady decides that Mr. McGilded is, in fact, a bad person. So she casts her vote, and all 6 jurors have said he's guilty. And now what's going to happen, apparently, is the judge is going to render his verdict of guilty in line with the jurors. But suddenly Susato's like, wait, I found a footnote, gets interrupted by the judge. And then Naruhodo's like, that footnote, what did it say? And she says, basically, there's like a footnote that nobody does this, but like you can like ask for a summation examination of the jurors. To which Naruhodo says, hey, I can ask for a summation examination of the jurors, so let's do it. And what's his face? Zeke's is like, hold on. That's like a really obscure formality. Nobody does that, you know? And Naruhodo's like, well, I'm doing it. And the judge is like, well, it's legal. He can do it.
And I mean, the judge is old, so it makes sense that he'd be more comfortable with it.
Right. But I mean, Zeke's is surely ageless, but yeah, you're right. It does make sense. And to that end, we have a new sort of gameplay mechanic with summation examination where the jurors each give their reasoning. You can question them as to why they've arrived at their verdict. And then they're like, you can't exactly give evidence and contradict them like regular, but you can take their testimony and pit them against each other. So if 2 jurors like testimonies contradict each other, you can say, wait a sec, those 2 things don't jive, you know? And like one of them is that juror 6, the old lady, is like, she, you know, well, he was stabbed with like a stabbing downward motion. And juror 3 is like, no, you're stabbing from the side. And I hate the UI for this. Like, I get it, but it's like not super intuitive.
Yeah.
Because you pick one, and then you get like the 6 dots representing each of the jurors, and you can't select the one you pitted, obviously. And they do a thing where they're showing like a 2D spotlight, like light thing kind of like on them. it's a little weird, and it's like one of those things where I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing right away. It's not that hard. It's like, oh, okay, wait, there we go. But at any rate, you can do that, and then they've contradicted each other, and then you can pick I think 2 and 5. Oh, you can also pit against, because the type, was it 2 and 5, is the maid is like, yeah, it's like 20 pence, they said, to it's 20 pence to get on the bus.
It's like I believe the driver, because he even remembered, the exact amount of money that he got from the thing. So clearly his memory is good. He's a good witness. And
he said before that, like, he took 20 pence that night.
Yeah.
The other person who turns out to be the boss of Beppo's boss, the guy at the guild.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So he like runs like the driver's guild, basically.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's 4 pence or whatever, and if you put them together,
the selection of the jury is very lax here.
Yeah.
They can have a relationship with one of the witnesses.
Yep.
Very short. I'm going to say it wrong. I know. Voir dire, I think it's called. I mean, it is, but I don't know how it's pronounced.
Voir dire, I think, is how it's said in like English pretending to be French.
I see.
Voir dire.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, the conflict there is that if it's 4 people at 4 pence, then it would be 16. And the guy's like, well, I collected 20. And the drill down is that he was just overcharging.
Yeah, he's like, it's so cold, like going, I'm sorry.
It's so
and he's
cold.
like, it's late at night.
I spend all that money on alcohol trying to warm myself up.
And then lady first, who did we mention he's a hat maker with this really crappy hat on?
Yeah. And the animation gets a little annoying because he just keeps doing it where his hat slips off his back and he corrects himself. And if you linger on his character too long, it just keeps happening over and over again.
Like, it happens like twice a second. It is extremely fast.
Yeah.
He also he has kind of a funny joke here, though. He goes, excuse, can I interrupt? Once I was charged 10 pence for it, and then like he was like 10 pence, like Beppo, we're gonna have words, So we learned Beppo's a really dishonest, crappy driver.
Yeah.
And then like the jury foreman is like, what does this matter? 10 pence, whatever. Like, everyone agrees that the guy was stabbed the same way, right? And we're like, no, because check this out. We present the photo. We do kind of present evidence here. So with that, one of the jurors, I think 5, the guild guy, the non-Irish stereotype, even though he totally is, changes back his vote to not guilty. And then we're back at the races.
Well, you have to get to 4, and eventually those 2 conflicts give us 4 jurors who turn around.
Right. Oh, right. Okay. And then, by the way, Zeke smashes his wine glass in his hand and then throws off the cape. And I wrote in all caps, cape is off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's just basically like, all right, fine. You're contending. They looked down and they saw, oh, you know what it was? We contradict because the jury foreman's like, mentions like one of the witnesses said both his gloves were bloody, and we submit like the gloves, I think, to show like McGilded's gloves that were taken has like one splotch of blood on them, not both hands,
Also, can I just point out something that I thought was going to come up later? Is that there's only blood on the inside of the glove, which would make no sense if you're stabbing someone. If you only stab somebody once, the blood should be on the outside of your glove because you're holding the friggin' knife.
That's true.
Yeah, but that never comes up.
The other thing, like, that the evidence really likes to point out that I thought was going to come up is that, like, they keep saying, it's like you can't really see their face from under the hats. It's like from like in the both in the photo of the victim and like from the like the people on top looking through the skylight. It's like, yeah, you can't really see their faces because of their hats. You can't really just because of the angle. You just can't really see their faces. And they really play this up, and it doesn't come up in this case at all.
Right. It does come up later, though.
Yeah, it comes up once.
Naruto, when they first say it, Naruto tries to point it out, but that it may not be McGilded because they couldn't see the face. And they said that they recognized him because he's so short. So
yeah,
You know what it is? It comes. You don't get to present it, if I remember. Like, it comes up in a plot thing, like automatically. Like, you don't point it out.
I think it's more that because it's not what the prosecutor says, it's not evidence. It's a theory. It's not evidence. So you can't prove either way. So you can only use it to sort of dispute things. You can't use it to sort of, establish anything.
What was I saying? But at any rate, the contention is basically, since they can't see that, it's like, so what's your theory? And of course, our cockamamie theory that we don't know for sure, but we have to press on toward, is that there's a third person in the carriage. And to this, McGilded mentions, there isn't I had an urchin that was around, mentions an urchin, and all of a sudden there's a bang and then smoke.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff before that, how we get to this point.
Oh, there is? We'll get to it then, my friend. What am I missing?
Well, when you get back from the juror, Naruto's theory, there must have been another person because of the discrepancy in sum of money the driver took. But yeah, that's when Beppo said that it was just overcharging. That's where both witnesses claim that they saw the McGilded had both of his hands drenched in blood. And you present the law, but everyone agrees that doesn't make sense, but they never seem to take this as conclusive evidence.
They're just like, they insist on it, both witnesses. Like, no, I saw both hands bloody,
Yeah. And that's, I think, where you come up with the fifth person theory again. And you have to show that that was possible because they didn't have a full view of the inside of the carriage from where they were sitting.
That's right.
Because the back bench is not visible if you look at it from the top of the carriage.
Yeah. And once they establish that they aren't telling the truth about that, you establish that...
And that's when the judge asks you, so who was sitting in that back bench? And you say that it's McGilded himself. So he was not actually next to the victim and who the witnesses saw, but he was sleeping on the back bench when they couldn't see him. And that's when you call McGilded back and he says that, that's exactly what happened. And also there was a fifth person there who I helped escape.
That's right.
Yep.
As an urchin.
And also in the course of this, we've established that, I guess, at one point, the prosecutor brings in, when he tells us about McGilded being this guy who loans at these extortionate rates, he also, introduces the ledger to show that Mason owed money to McGilded. And then what we find during the course of finding out that say Fair Play is lying about viewing things, that Fair Play also owed money to McGilded.
Thus giving him a motive, because if McGilded goes to jail, then the debt is automatically annulled.
Yeah. Before we get to the second part of the trial, did everyone here fully examine the omnibus in that first part?
No.
Yes.
I did, actually. Yeah, I didn't do it right when it came up, but I did do it pretty early on.
I examine everything the second it gets in the court record.
Me too. They expect you to, but they do, if you don't, and you don't have to in the first part, they do take that into consideration, which is nice.
Yeah. If you don't find everything, it pops up and it asks you, it introduces a thing, you have to admit you didn't see it.
Yeah, but if you are looking there, then Rosella, do you want to tell us what we find in the omnibus?
Yeah. So you can examine, the whole, the outside of the omnibus. You look at the top, you see okay, there's 2 benches. It's got the skylight. You can look down. You can see only the one bench. But you can also go inside the omnibus, and you can you see immediately to your left, there's the seat with blood on it. And you can look up and see that the skylight, that you can't open it, it doesn't budge.
You can look down and see that the floor is clean.
Yeah, you can you see nothing else of particular interest except the seat that at this point McGilded has been purported to be sitting on has a handle, and if you open it, you can see there's a little storage compartment in there that's just got some random paraphernalia in it for like keeping the like horses and stuff like that. And they even point out, they're like, yeah, this wouldn't even be useful for people to like keep their luggage in, because it's just full of crap that the driver needs. And that's about everything you can find on the omnibus. So it's good. That's good. It's good backstory to have in the back of your brain. As like we've said, then all of a sudden there's a smoke bomb, and we all get ushered out of the courtroom. Yep, and they're evacuated, and that's like kind of the trial. There's like a brief recess, basically. Then so we're outside. Let's see here. They basically they come back in, and the bailiff has caught the girl who was trying to escape. Oh, I think actually even before that happened too, McGill did say something, and I think this urchin might be here in the courtroom right now. And then the smoke bomb goes off.
Yeah.
But they caught her, and they figure out she's got a fancy thing from the army called a smoke grenade. And she actually has it like a grenade launcher with her, and it looks like Holmes's gun.
Yeah.
But bigger.
Yeah, they didn't take it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, for what?
She's on the stand with the gun.
Yeah, and she like fires one at the judge, I think, and one at us, like a pink smoke gun and a green smoke gun.
Yeah, it makes colorful smoke bombs, I guess.
Yeah, it's very cute.
Yeah, it has an icon on it, just like the one on Holmes's goggles. That's got like the sort of 4 clover. Which is interesting.
Yeah.
And I wrote, is it Holmes's? When I should have wrote, is it Sholmes's? But, still, yeah. But her name, let's see here. Oh, so they're both on the stand. I actually wrote, is this Pavlova? Because she's like blonde and she's kind of hiding her face for a lot of it. And she won't answer like who she is, etc. But then it's not Pavlova.
That wouldn't make any sense.
Well, I know, but we don't have many characters that it could be. So what do you call it?
Giselle Brett.
I think she's too tall to be Giselle Brett, but yeah.
But there's another blonde person that's been introduced.
Is she blonde, Giselle Brett?
I always forget.
I don't know. She has a swan. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, the swan distracted me from the hair color.
The swan is white, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
I think Giselle Brett is a redhead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she is.
Okay.
So what happens? Apparently his testimony, he was woken by a scream inside the cabin, because one thing that we mentioned is Lady First. Apparently he also screamed when he saw the murder. But he heard one inside the cabin, and then he sat the victim up, which everyone's like, why would you take a dead body and do that? And he's like, wait, you're just going to leave a dead body on the ground? That's disrespectful.
Yeah, always prop a dead body up into a seating position like it's Weekend at Bernie's. That's definitely the course you should do.
The family will thank you at the wake, yeah. Anyway, the urchin speaks up, and she has a very oh blimey kind of British accent, and she does occasionally do Cockney rhyming slang.
We didn't say what her name is.
Her name is Gina Lestrade, which, if that's a joke, I don't really get it.
It's a Holmes reference.
Oh.
So Lestrade is one of the most important Holmes characters, who is not a little girl in the Holmes stories.
Yeah, and so the Holmes stories, Inspector Lestrade is like this guy who works for Scotland Yard, who is kind of bumbling and incompetent, and that Holmes helps, and Lestrade gets the credit a lot. And it's just, he never has a first name. It's just G. Lestrade or just Lestrade. Both pronunciations are used.
It's like the main police officer in the Holmes stories.
Yeah, he shows up. Him and
Gregson, I think.
Bias Gregson, yeah. So it's just a reference.
So let's see here. Anyway, the thing is that McGill did hit her, said she was hiding in the seat under him. And she, when they were like, well, we didn't see her. He's like, well, I hit her and I made sure she got away because it can't possibly be her. And I'm willing to sacrifice, my reputation just so that she won't get, unfairly convicted because of her station in life. And 2 other jurors get swayed by that.
Yeah, she's also she's a pickpocket.
And she's a pickpocket, right? And Zeke's is like, no, wait a sec. Scotland Yard thoroughly searched this omnibus, and there's, what is he? Was it that there was like, was it that McGilded like offers him to like lift up the seat and see that there's like space underneath for her to hide, and Zeke's is like, wait, that wasn't empty earlier. There was like stuff in there.
Yeah, and he even asks us like, hey, you checked it out earlier. What did you see? You did check it out, right?
Right.
And you can say no.
You can lie, or you can like tell the truth that it was full before.
Yep. So Gina's testimony is she did hear a loud sound and she decided to have a butcher, which is like, if you're doing Cockney rhyming slang, I feel like that's the default one everyone goes to.
Yeah.
I had never heard that one before. I had to look it up. I gathered from context clues that she was saying, like have a look, but I'm like, butcher. Look.
So there's a movie called The Limey, and it's about a guy from England whose daughter's killed in America, and he comes to America for revenge, like an action movie, But he uses a lot, and he kind of like half explains it. So he's like, "We're gonna have a butcher," and like an American character will be like, "A what?" And he goes, "A butcher's hook, a look." So like the trick to Cockney rhyming slang is the thing you're trying to say. You rhyme it, but then you shorten the rhyme so it's not clear what you were referring to in the first place.
Yeah, you almost always take off the part of it.
The thing that would help you like identify what it is.
Yeah, like they call feet plates. And because it's plates of meat, but you don't say plates of meat, you say plates.
Mm-hmm. Or like your friend, you'd say like, "It's my new chine," and they're like, "Chine?" Yeah, china plate, my mate.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, Cockney rhyming slang is kind of ridiculous. It's like one of those things you have to be in the know for.
I think that's the point. Yeah, it's like you're supposed. It's a code. It's basically code language for people, so who's supposed to be there, who's familiar with it, and who isn't. Right.
Anywho. So basically, it's just like, well, how the heck could there, because it's like, so if she's the third person in there, why, and she heard McGilded, like, come in, like, there was a sound, but then, like, why didn't she hear Mason get into the carriage?
Before that, he also, he took her out of that little cabin, and then he set her next to the corpse, and his point is that's what 2 witnesses saw.
Yeah, and I think she even says, like, and then I touched the corpse and got both of my hands bloody, so that should explain everything that everyone had.
Yeah, and she's short like McGilded is, so that's why they mistook her, even though she didn't see their faces.
Yep.
And, like, around here is where I think at some point we convinced the entire jury that he's not guilty, because it's he's would put his reputation on the line for this poor urchin, and all this seems to check out and make sense, and so we've got 6 not guilty, and so like it seems like the judge is going to have to make a verdict, but then Zeke's swings his leg around and puts it on the prosecutor's bench, and insists that this does not that this is not okay, and this will not work. He just like puts his fucking foot up there. It's so weird.
This was my favorite Zeke's pose, by the way. It was just out of nowhere, and he's like, "Pardon me if he names his boot or something like that." And it's just so wild.
If my iron heel offends or something.
Yeah.
He complains about like everyone being so ruled by emotion when they should be ruled by evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And tries like, I forget exactly what he brings up.
Well, it is sort of like there's no other way for someone to get in, basically, if like you couldn't have gone into the door. Isn't that it? Like you didn't walk into the carriage like that. There's just no way there was an extra person there that Lestrade heard,
Mm-hmm.
I think was it, which brings up then our cockamamie theory that, well, that's because the victim, Mason, fell through the skylight, which it's like, what? And then like the 2 witnesses, I think, come back at this point with McGilded and are on the stand. That is Durst and...
because the big thing was that when she's trapped under the seat and she can't hear anything because McGilded's sitting on the seat. When she's in the compartment, he's sitting on the seat. there's she can hear everything. And I guess it's enhanced because it's dark and, you're going to pay attention more to what you can hear. And she doesn't hear anyone come in. And so we have to come up with the theory of, he didn't come in through the door. The thump was when he came through the skylight when he was dropped in.
Gotcha. So at this point, I think they come back, right? The two were like, oh, we would have seen that, And then basically we're like, well, there's one reason that you might not have testified that you've seen that, which is that we know that Mr. Fairplay, has a big debt to the defendant. So maybe you two conspired together here to stab Mason and then drop his body through there. And they said, and they like, no, because you know what? And then I think it's First who says like, no, that can't be it, because I've been in the omnibus in the lower compartment and you can't open the skylight. And I'm going to confess that because once I farted really badly and I tried to open the skylight and I couldn't. So I was like stuck there with my own flatulence. To which I think the judge or someone says like, what an odd confession.
Yeah, that's exactly. The judge is like, okay. Thanks for contributing that.
Do you expect me to sentence you? Like, why would you say that?
Also, he was in the compartment with a bunch of other people, and they were all really pissed off at him for farting, and they couldn't let the air out. Fart humor.
This is also when we start to get some of the breakdown animations for them. Where like Fairplay turns forward so you can see his big Waluigi mustache and starts like nibbling on his cane.
Yeah,
like a lot. It's uncomfortably often. Yeah.
It is, yeah.
I'm like, that looks like that'd hurt.
I'm like, I don't even know how to describe what Lady First is doing.
He's like riding a fake horse, or like how you like play ride a horse. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It looks like something out of a Popeye cartoon. Like that's the kind of animation that he's doing.
Yeah, he's sort of doing like the, I'm about to box, but I've got my ass out and I'm jumping up and down.
Do you know what? Actually, we forgot to mention, which are fun animation things. Is so Naruhodo, first of all, he has Karuma, the sword, with him. And he also has now, instead of that little badge, he has the armband that Kazuma's wearing, but it's like kind of too big and it keeps like slipping down his sleeve. Like
every time he loses confidence in himself and looks nervous, like the band slips down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, he's got the eye movements where like he's really freaked out by all this. So whenever he's sort of uncomfortable, his eyes just move around like he's on meth or something. Like they just start darting all over the place.
Yep. Yeah. What do you call it? The animation. This is great. I don't care for First's animation, but everybody else is still top notch.
Yep.
Let's see here. Also, like a juror number 3, when he gets kind of flustered, will stick a knife, slam a knife into like the table in front of him, of like, you know what I mean, then he can't get it out, and he's like pulling on it.
Yeah.
Also, First calls himself a very angry hatter. When you accuse him of conspiring to murder someone, he does not like that.
It's almost like he's mad.
It should be mentioned, too, that, and I can't remember if it starts here, but McGilded starts defending himself as well. Like, he'll, kind of bring up things, Yeah,
he's pushing us in the direction he wants the trial to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Because they're like, oh, we don't even know this guy. Or we don't know anyone in the cabin. And McGilded's like, well, I mean, you owe me money, and you're a hatter, and the victim wore a hat. So... And his hat was shit. That's the important part. So obviously you're the only one who could have made it.
Right. Durst is a hatter, and then Miguel pointed out, his hat is all it's like a top hat, but it's obviously the top's been either ripped off or cut or something, because it's horribly stitched back, and you know what I mean? And the victim, Mason's hat's like that too, So, and I think Durst makes a joke well, I'm just learning, or something like that, which is why his hats suck. But
It's First. Durst is Robert Durst.
So anyway, they're saying do you have any proof that that the victim fell through the skylight? And to which if you examine the omnibus and the latch is now disengaged, so you can open the skylight from inside.
I'm outside. You can only open it from outside.
Well, when you're examining it, you can open it. So here's the deal. You're right. Like in the trial, it's a big point that you can only open it from the outside because there's a latch on the outside.
Yeah. Once you do that and you go inside the carriage, you can look up and see that there's a bloodstain.
Right.
Like on the sky hatch.
Yeah.
But you can't see the bloodstain from outside. It's weird.
But yeah. So you have to like open. So I opened the skylight from inside when I was examining it. And Susato made a point that like we can do that because the latch is disengaged on the outside.
Yeah, we disengaged the latch when we were explaining that the latch existed and there was a way to open it. And then once that was disengaged, you could do it from either side.
I think it's just the game's way of not being like having an overcomplication where you have to like go outside the omnibus, open it, go back inside and then look or something like that to see that there's blood on the inside of the skylight.
Which is absolutely what I did, by the way.
Yeah, me too. I did the same
me
thing.
too.
Oh, I didn't. Okay. So I looked, I didn't open it. I opened it from the inside. So
That might be also be the first time you notice that there's like a huge bloodstain on the floor of the omnibus that wasn't there before.
yeah, which I hadn't, but
I had not noticed or whatever when I was doing the examining the card. I didn't notice the handle. I mean, I just didn't click on the handle and realize that it was something that you could discover. So I did not have that piece of evidence, but I did definitely go through that a lot. So I was 100% sure. Like, yeah, there was no blood stain on there before.
You actually couldn't click the handle before, before it gets brought up in court because I tried. I noticed it. And it just acts like you clicked the skylight and it's like, yep, you sure can see down here at an angle and it's fine. But then once it gets brought up in trial, then when you click that area, it unhinges the latch.
Sure.
Also, the thing that I noticed when I forget why I wanted to look at the omnibus again shortly after the smoke bomb incident.
They actually tell you to in dialogue.
Oh yeah. Right, they do, because you can see that the little compartment is empty. It's like you could totally fit a 14-year-old girl in there. But the blood stain on the ground is a little bit brighter than the one on the seat.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was not there before.
well, so Naruhodo doesn't quite make that connection right now, but Zeke's has an interesting thing where he's like, well, here's the thing about that bloodstain, it can't exist. And Naruhodo's like, I'm sorry, because it's funny, it's a funny sort of inversion, because that's the kind of thing like Phoenix Wright would say, you know, and Edgeworth would be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and that bloodstain is like the final proof that someone was dropped in from above.
Yeah. So he's like, look, Scotland Yard looked at this, you know, like there's no blood, they found no blood stains, so somehow evidence was tampered with, to which I think McGilded brings up, excuse me, prosecutor, but you entered this omnibus here in evidence and it's been sitting here in court the entire time. And Zeke's, I think, does kind of a cool thing here. And he's like, does that sit well with you, counselor? Like, to us. To which I knew what he's basically making us admit it, which I liked. And I went along with it, which is like, yeah, no, actually there is a time they could have tampered with evidence, which is when we had the recess due to the smoke bomb, you know? He
also strongly implies that this isn't the first time McGilded has done this. He's like, hey, every time you get arrested, you adapt the facts to fit what works for you. And I guess this happens a lot.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Which would also maybe explain also why Zeke's has been brought out of a 5-year retirement to try, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and McGilded is also very angry with us when we point out that, something is strange here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can say, and I said that, like, no, that bloodstain was not there, which, if this was like the American system, that would be, completely improper for a defense attorney to admit, oh yeah, that evidence was definitely different. You would just not talk about it. You couldn't.
Objection, counsel is testifying.
Yeah, this trial is several mistrials over on top of each other, which every Phoenix Wright game is, but this one especially.
Yeah. So let's see what happens here.
Once Naruhodo admits, right, that the stain on the floor was not there before, McGilded just freaks out. He's like, this trial has to end, and actually does so accurately. right? He says to everything, great. You think that the evidence was tampered with? Show your proof. Oh, you don't have any proof? You just have the stuff you entered into evidence? You actually have nothing more to bring. You have no more witnesses. You have no more evidence to show. You don't have proof of what it looked like beforehand. It's done. And the judge agrees with him. He's like, yeah, you're right. We have no way of proving that these bloodstains didn't exist before. They do exist now. Even if the defense attorney admits it too, that's just one person's testimony. That isn't enough for anybody to form a conviction, at least.
The same memory is not enough to be proof. But the Scotland Yard did a very bad job here, because if they did examine everything so thoroughly, but they did not take any notes or photographs of it, then what are they doing?
Yeah, we have a color photograph of the victim and no photographs of the rest of the crime scene.
I mean, even if we didn't have any of that, the blood that is currently there is very clearly fresh compared to the other blood that was in the.
And one of the things that I really love in this part, because you basically the Zeke's asks you, Naruhodo, if he's satisfied, and you can admit that that there's still something, yes, we're not explaining everything, but McGilda just laughs and he talks about the fact that he pays taxes to the people who to the people at Scotland Yard who investigate these things, which just reeks of, oh yeah, I bribe people. There's a reason why you don't have the evidence here. There's a reason why when the bombs went off and Zeke's asked for the carriage to be secured, no one secured the carriage, because the normal cops are bought and paid for.
Now, and it kind of follows then too why nobody wants to defend him, and why he would want to have some, a foreigner, basically, like someone who has no idea who he is or anything, like, hey, yeah, you know what? You can defend this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know any of his tricks. You don't know that he's going to try to fuck the system for his own benefit,
Yeah. And it also explains why Van Zeeks has come out of retirement for this, because he wants to get this guy.
Right. And he thinks oh man, no, we have the evidence. We've absolutely got him. And they kind of did have the evidence until it mysteriously changed.
Mm-hmm. And this is why he was just telling us at the beginning, you don't need to do anything, just stand next to us, stand next to me.
Yep.
Because he had this all planned.
Yeah, he's all set. And he's like, you did a great job, my boy. And they find him not guilty. There's the usual
we win. He's not guilty.
Yeah.
We win.
Yay, fireworks go off.
Yeah, there are fireworks.
In the courtroom.
In the courtroom. And they even call it out. Usually it's just a cute little thing in Phoenix, right? That you're not sure is in universe or not. But no, here they're yeah, I didn't, he's outside the room. Gilded's yeah, I didn't realize they actually had fireworks, but apparently they do. So
he says that in such a way that you're wait, was that your reasoning for doing all this? You just wanted to see the fireworks? You murdered a man and everything? Just because you wanted to see the secret fireworks?
Yep. Yeah, so I guess what's left?
He still offers us 1,000 guinea, but we don't accept.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so after this, he kind of oh yeah, the bailiff comes out and he says that McGilda can go inspect the crime scene now.
That's right.
Yeah, which is just weird.
Seems highly irregular.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, basically he's just look, I want to help Scotland Yard wherever I can, so I'm happy to help them inspect the crime scene. So, toodaloo. And we kind of realize, shit, we have nowhere to stay. Maybe we can stay in McGilded Park, even though it's freezing. But Gina shows up with her smoke gun. And, she has a really long load animation. And we comment on that.
She doesn't like adults.
Right. Oh, she doesn't like adults. And this little girl shows up. And she's a little steampunk engineer girl who has her own theme song and her own bazooka, which again has that symbol on it, the 4-leaf clover.
Yeah, and it's the sights are just like Holmes's glasses.
Yep. And basically she's you need to give that back. So she's like, eep, yep, here, take your smoke gun back, And she's identified as question marks. We never learn her name. And that's just the start of the trying times.
She makes Gina go with her, though, to apologize to someone.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because she's the inventor of these things. So she's this little steampunk girl who also invents all these guns.
She's also, in addition to the like the little clover motif, she's got hearts everywhere. It's very cute. I love her a lot.
She was great.
Yeah, but we don't know her name yet.
Yeah.
What do you think it is?
I know what it is.
I was going to go with Enola Holmes.
Enola Holmes?
I don't think they're basing this on a Netflix series, but something like that.
Anyone else have any theories about who this girl is?
I don't think it's... I mean, my theory is just that she's, like, obviously, like some genius inventor that Holmes... Holmes' Q, you know? Where, like, that's where he's getting all his, like, gadgets from, you know? But I don't know enough about Sherlock Holmes to know if there is, like, any character who's like that, which I don't think there is.
I don't think there's any children in Sherlock Holmes stories.
There's the Baker Street Irregulars.
Oh yeah, the Baker
There's a
Street
bunch of
Irregulars.
urchins that he employs, but no, she's definitely, that's not the role she's fulfilling here. I don't know. They could also adapt the housekeeper, but yeah.
I'm wondering if it's like, did Watson never have a kid?
Not that I know of. No, it's just his wife.
Okay.
There's a love interest, but I really hope it's not.
Yeah,
her.
no.
No, okay, no. Oof.
Yeah, Rena Adler, but no, that would not be.
It's kind of nice that none of you like looked at any like promotional material for this game, because this character's name is like very highly publicized.
Oh yeah, I specifically avoided it because we had talked a few months before this came out about playing the game. So at that point I just shut everything off. I'm just like, nope, no thanks.
Yeah, I mean, she shows up on the like sort of title card when you like hover over the game on PS5.
She's on the cover of the physical like Japanese copy.
Yeah,
She's one of the 4 characters.
I know she's a real character, but I mean, they don't have name tags on the cover, so
Right.
I stay away from promotional material. It's not for my eyes.
I figured when she had her own little like theme song that she was going to be a character. I feel like too, and this is a pretty cold take, that like, I mean, this is, I feel like one of those like revisited kind of trial like things where like, I don't know how, oh gosh, I totally forgot her name. The lady from the first trial.
Giselle?
You know,
Yeah,
thank you. Giselle Brett, yeah, thank you. I don't know how Giselle figures into this or if she does, but like, I feel like it's a thing we have to revisit, including like the evidence from the omnibus and everything, you know, like it'll be the final case and we'll like have to redo like, okay, here's what really happened kind of deal, you know? But, I don't know exactly how that's going to go just yet. And obviously it's going to involve like help from Sherlock Holmes. But
Also, there's the one last animation scene that we have before this ends, which is we just see the omnibus catch on fire, and there's there's somebody inside who breaks the window, but we don't see who it is, or they don't get out. We don't see them die either. We just see it's on fire. We see a detective ask a policeman who, the Bobby, like, what happened? And he's like, it was like this when we found it, which seems weird for something that was in a court. And then the judge and Zeke's come out and they see the fire and they're just like, oh no, he got away with it again or something like that. And that's it. And then we cut to the next episode.
I had a cockamamie theory that Wilson actually didn't die, but I can't remember what I based it on. And I don't think it's really possible.
Well, my theory was that maybe that wasn't really Wilson, because it seems like that whole prelude where he's like recording Holmes talking about the Japanese student seems like, if it's not just some weird, not getting the timeline right, it seems like maybe Wilson's going to pop up later and still be alive somehow.
How many John Wilsons that are... It's probably a common enough name that are doctors. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a completely different one.
But you know what it is? It's also like, it kind of not explains it. It explains it from like a story perspective, like why Susato or Naruhodo never mentioned like, oh, John Wilson, that's who we saw. You know what I mean? Like, because if they did, that would kind of like give it away or something. You know what I mean? Like, it would reveal too much of the story of that plot twist. You know what I mean? Like, it's why specifically we don't bring it up. You know?
Oh, so that no one could be like, what? I just had lunch with him. Like, he's great. He's still writing.
Exactly. Holmes would be like, I just saw him 2 days ago. He definitely didn't die a month ago.
In Japan.
Or no, like, don't worry, we're staging that because we want your assistant Kazuma to come to England to help this guy McGilded and like explain everything accidentally, you know? Which obviously wouldn't happen, but, I mean, you know that too. Like McGill did. If there is some grand conspiracy, and there obviously is, he has the money to pull it off. So, like, if I feel like we're gonna relitigate a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, like that. Maybe it wasn't even an accident, really, that Kazuma died. That Pavlova's being pinned on it, but something else kind of complicated happened.
I forgot there was a part early on that I took note of but didn't mention at the time, which is when we were talking to Maelstrom. We're like, yeah, no, we like when we're trying to convince him that we can be a lawyer, we say, hey, we want to accomplish
That's
what
right.
Kazuma Asogi wanted to accomplish while he was here. And he looks at us like, do you really mean that? Like, as if he knows what Kazuma's plans were.
Yeah. Like he says like everything or something like that. Like he's like, do you really want to accomplish everything? And he's like, oh, okay.
Well, yeah, everything. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know what I'm agreeing to, but of course I agree to it,
Cosmo was planning to overthrow the country, right?
Kazuma was going to date me, right?
He mostly came here for me.
And then his eyes start darting around on the date. What would Kazuma say to that Bonmot? Bonmot, whatever. Yeah. So I mean, I didn't dislike the case per se, but I don't know. I liked it the least of the three so far.
I will admit that, especially the second case, how can you introduce us to a character of Herlock Sholmes and then take him away from us? The second case had so much personality, and this one had a lot.
This just feels like an intro to the bigger thing, and it went a little too long for the tutorial of this arc in a way.
It's weird because it's a tutorial case, but it's not. Ouchie is obviously part of the tutorial case, right? But it still feels like a tutorial case. Yeah. And yeah.
Because they have to introduce a new legal system with new gameplay mechanics. And so you are playing tutorial stuff and they have to sort of introduce it that way, which is weird to happen in the third chapter. It's not, I don't think it's bad. And I think it's definitely, it probably pays off more because it's setting up so many things. I think probably in retrospective, when we're done, we might be like, oh yeah, now I like the third chapter, but it's weird. It just throws off sort of the pacing of the overall game when you go back to tutorial while you're already this far in.
There are some pacing issues with this game, definitely, because lengthwise, we're about halfway through the first game, because the two games are kind of one big game. There are 5 cases in this game, but the 2 last ones are pretty much as long as the first 3 ones. So we're halfway through, and we've just introduced one of the major characters who's on the cover of this game, and we didn't even name her yet.
Yep. And we threw away a character that's huge to the game just for a whole middle chapter.
Yeah.
It's usually the third. I'm not an expert, but usually the third case in the Phoenix Wright games are unrelated, fun little ones like the Steel Samurai. And I forget
the circus.
Actually, the circus. Never mind. I shouldn't have said fun, but they're intended to be fun. Oh, sorry, I thought about the circus case again. I'm sorry.
Just made myself sad.
This one, because the second case didn't have a trial, this one had to introduce the new prosecutor and a lot of stuff in London, so it couldn't be the throwaway case.
It is just a weird game though so far, where we have the first case is all trial, and that makes total sense. But then the second case is all investigation, and then this is also all one day of trial. It seems to me it feels like the game is being morphed to fit the story rather than the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I do feel like the pacing has not been 100%, where some things definitely feel like they've been dragged out a little longer, but it really, I'm interested to see where it's going. I'm still along for the ride.
Nah, same.
Oh, yeah, definitely, totally.
I also know about the production problems that this game had, which I think we should talk about when we finish the first game. I think, by the way, we should do both of them because they aren't really 2 different games. They're one very long game.
Sure.
So we will need to do both games that are in this package.
Yeah, I figured we would.
And also, if we're halfway through already, I would say, that's the being just a quarter way through makes more sense. The other thing too is that it's this. I've only played the first 3 Phoenix Wright games. People who would know more could probably let me know on this one. I don't remember an investigation being shorter than this. Like, we only have the investigation of the omnibus, and even that is pretty short. There's almost no investigation in this chapter.
Yeah, this is an all trial case basically.
Which honestly, like, as someone who's only played the first game, the investigation sections went on way too long for me. So the more of the trial sections was more fun for me. So I consider this a good thing.
Oh, so you'll have fun. You'll have fun next week then.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the thing about the investigations with the Phoenix Wright games too, though, is that they're never totally satisfying, because they can't be, because you need to like kind of get half the clue to get into, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I keep thinking about the circus case now that I brought it up. Damn it.
No, what a curse.
I know. Anyway, so like, yeah. What are we reading for next time, by the way?
So next time the first chapter is the actual first full-length chapter that has half investigation, half court. I think we should just do the investigation part.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be shorter than like what we did so far, but both of them will definitely be much longer than we can do. So just stop when the trial starts.
Sure.
Okay.
Gotcha.
That sounds fun. And yeah, that'll give us the chance to actually do some theory crafting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is a full-length investigation part.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I am interested to see too how, like, where the Sherlock Holmes deduction part comes in, like if that comes in during a trial or during the investigation. You know what I mean? I feel like it must come during a trial, personally. Like,
oh yeah, the like rebuttal too.
Do you want me to? Do you want me to tell you?
no, I don't.
Okay.
I'm just I'm guessing it's gonna happen. Like, you were gonna have to call him for testimony, and that's how it works. And it kind of ends up being like the final part of something. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of is. But it could also just be part of the investigation. Who the hell knows?
I mean, if it's part of the trial, I think it'd be a lot harder for us to do the synchronized dance.
Well, actually, I saw a great tweet somebody said where, like, somebody was like, AAA games, like, man, why didn't, like, they, like, make this leaf fall or whatever? But then they show, like, footage of somebody watching Great Ace Attorney when he's walking in front of, like, the 6, like, jurors. And they're like, oh, my God, he's walking around the courtroom? Oh, my God, this is amazing.
See, I saw that and I was like, haha, very funny. And then I actually played the section and I'm like, wow, this is actually surprising. This is giving me like a feeling, and I'm not actually sure why.
Yeah.
Just after watching all these static animations.
The animation is too realistic. I mean, it's obviously like video captured, and they painted over it.
Yeah.
I really liked it. It's nice to see him like pace, kind of, because like Phoenix Wright always has those like thoughtful kind of things where he like taps paper or like he like kind of like rub his chin kind of deal. But like, I don't know, like the one hand behind his back, like pacing thing is not, I don't know. I liked it. I definitely like felt like that. I saw that before I saw the meme. And, I was like, that's so cool. We're walking. What a world. But, oh, that reminds me too. Very quickly, they mentioned there's going to be a great exhibition also.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Which was a real thing. This is a real world event. Even though it took place in the real world, like 30 years before the game takes place.
Right.
So, but you can look it up.
Yeah. So,
And it's going to make the World Fair look like crap.
That's right. Screw the Parisian World Fair. We're going for the Great Exhibition.
There's going to be a Crystal Tower. I love Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, the Final Fantasy 14 crossover I've been waiting for.
I think the Crystal Tower was a real thing.
Oh, I believe it.
Crystal Palace. Because there's a neighborhood in London called Crystal Palace.
You know what sucks? Marvel vs. Capcom should have had Naruhodo instead of Phoenix Wright as the character. He's got a sword. It makes more sense. All right. Anyway, sorry. Anything else?
Nope.
Oh, all right, then. Well, in that case, we will see you all next time. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.